Hey, it's Aaron from GameEnthus.com, and this video I'm going to be talking about a game that features foxes walking through the forest, as foxes do, casting spells, casting spells, and competing with each other to cast the most powerful spells, to earn the most points and collecting the best sets of skulls and herbs and mysterious eggs and other things that may or may not actually exist. Well, that's relatively immaterial. The game is called Nocturne. Nocturne is designed by David Iezzi, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, with art from the prolific Beth Sobel. The game also has some development from names that you know and love, like Fortessa Elise, Molly Johnson, Sean Stankiewicz, Dylan Mangini for graphic design, and Robert Melvin. There's also a solo mode that's currently being designed by Sean Stankiewicz, but a solo mode will be included in the final version of the game. It also behooves me to make clear that the things you're going to see today are a prototype, so some of the art and maybe some of the mechanics, some of the rules and things might be a little bit different in this prototype than they are in the final version of the game. But rest assured, what you're going to see today is very indicative of what the final product will ultimately be. Nocturne describes itself as a puzzly spatial bidding game with set collection, featuring the sly mystics staying up all night during twilight and moonlight in order to cast spells and compete with each other, like I said, to cast the most powerful spells and just sort of one-up their rivals. The game consists of two different rounds, the Twilight round and the Moonlight round. They're both very similar. Let me walk you through what the Twilight round consists of. Okay, this is what a three-player setup might look like in Nocturne. So you have the green player, the orange player, and the magenta, right? We'll go with magenta. Nocturne is a bidding, area control, set collection game. So yes, there are several mechanics kind of going on at the same time, but it all fits together well. Everybody has a character, so this is Abigail Bushtail, and we're playing in, I guess, the basic regular mode. There is a more advanced mode that every character has a different ability. We're not playing with that, so you're basically kind of picking just based on color preference or whatever happens to be left over after somebody takes blue, which happens a lot. Every player also has a unique starter concoction card. If you look at the icons here, you have the two feathers, the skull, and the egg. You would keep this to yourself. You're essentially trying to fulfill at least two of these. So the top row with the feather and the skull, if you look here, you see all of these have the feather and the skull is on these tiles. If you get all four, you get the 5 points. So 2 for 2, 4 for 5. So it's an or. So you do the top row or do all of it for even more points. Runestone tiles. This one actually lets you draw 3 concoctions. These are more concoctions. The starter concoctions have a different color back, but it just gets one starter one, and then for the rest of the game you are trying to fulfill the concoctions here, which work very similarly. You also have cursed treasure chest tiles, which you will lose a point for having it, but it allows you to draw 3 tiles and keep one. The skull tiles, if you get one of these are just pure points. There's no set collection with these. You just have it and you get the points in the upper right corner. Firebird Feather is more of a set collection thing, where the more you have, the more points that you will earn. And the same for the different types of mushrooms, where if you have one, it's worth nothing. This one, if you have one, it's worth 3. But then if you get 3, you get up to 13 points. And then the mysterious eggs are sort of a competitive thing where you're trying to have the most. So if you have the most eggs, they're worth 4 points each. If you have the least amount of eggs, they're worth 1 point each. The herb tiles, you want to have unique, different ones. So if you have 5 unique ones, you can get up to 12 points. That's kind of nice. And then the mirror stone allows you to copy any one of the tiles, but you cannot copy the icons on it. I'm not sure if the points get copied. I'm not sure if you copy this one, then you get 2 points for it, but you might. I do know that the icons do not go along with the copy. So there's 2 main phases in the game. You have the Twilight phase around, and then the Moonlight. So these are the Twilight, these are the Moonlight, and these are the concoctions that I talked about earlier. So you place out 3, and whenever you take a tile, you just check and confirm to see if you've earned any of these. You take them, into your tableau, your area, and then you get the number of points. They're always worth 3 points. Number of points at the end of the game. Like this one happens to be the first to win a tile with a 3 spell. You get 3 points for that. Pretty cool. This one is control the most spaces along the top row. And this one happens to be the first to control an area of 3 or more spaces. So there's, like I said, there's a lot of kind of mechanics going on at once. Let me just kind of give you an idea of how it might work. Let's start off with the green player here. The starting player always plays with their lowest token. So let's say based on what they have, let's see what they have here. They're going to bid on that. So then going clockwise. So we move on to the orange player, and let's say they want some more concoction, so they're going to bid on this one. So they take their 3 and they bid a 3 here. Over to the magenta player, and let's say they just want some points. So they want to get this this skull here. The skull tile is worth 4 points. So they put their 4 in there. It will come back around to the first player, and they can continue bidding on things that are orthogonally adjacent to what the player who just last bid played. Let's say they pass. They say, no, I'm good. They just want to keep it there. And the orange player says, hey, I'm good too. So they're going to pass. So that means that the magenta player won. So they would take the tile, turn their marker over, and then place this into their area, thus starting their tableau of tiles. And they also have 4 points. Kind of nice. Now, I didn't talk about these, which are the shadow spell tokens, nor did I talk about the forest sprite board. This is where it comes into play. The green and orange player have an option. They can just take their token back, or they can place it onto the board. On a 3-player game, you would go up to the 5th space. What you're doing is you're putting these in order. I think the orange player might go first, so they would place their 3 in the highest spot here, and then I guess the lower spot would be for the green player. I think I'm doing that right. It might be that they put it here. I'm not absolutely sure. But they both will go on the board, and ultimately it ends up that things are in order. And there's a mechanism to break ties, all those good things. So what you're effectively doing is you're placing your tokens here. You only place 1. So let's say they had bid multiple times. You can only put 1 tile on the forest sprite board. You can't put multiples on after 1 particular bid. You can have multiples on it by the end. I mean, with 5 spots and 3 players, well, somebody has to have multiples. And what you're doing is whoever has the highest one will get first pick of everything here, which this can really make a difference. So you have to kind of think ahead and be strategic about what are you willing to let go and not use for a bid. Now, just getting a 1 on there gets you in the game. You're going to get at least a tile. So it's definitely worth putting something out there. Whoever wins the bid and earns a tile will be the first to place the next bid for another tile in the subsequent round. So the magenta player would just go again. Now, the only thing is they have to choose a tile that is adjacent to the one that they just won. They can bid anything they want. You only bid the lowest for the first of the whole Twilight or Moonlight round. Well, they do need mushrooms. And let's say they do that one. And then turns would commence. Okay, so at the end of the Twilight round or the Moonlight round, it's going to look something like this. You're going to have areas that have been won and tiles that have been, they're going to have tokens replacing all the tiles, and then all the players are going to have earned the tiles. So at this point, you would resolve the forest sprite board, and looking at it here, you see the magenta player has 7 and 6, so they get first pick of what they want from here. Now, for any player who happens to have any bidding tokens remaining, so green has a 7 and magenta has a 4, they will get to, they'll be awarded with a shadow spell token, which also means that they're trading it. So because 7 is higher than 4, this player will go first. So let's say they would take this 10, and then they would get rid of this 7, and they exchange it basically. And they have a 4, so they're probably going to go take that 9. You're basically trading essentially. So if you get 3 because you have 3 left over, you get 3 from up here, but then you're getting rid of the other 3. So, and you're clearly going to want higher numbers for the most part. You don't know what goals are going to come out that might be specific to something that's not high. You have no idea. So you're probably just going to go for the highest number because that just makes sense. And it really only matters at the end of the Twilight round. There's only 2 rounds, so you're not going to need these going, after the Moonlight phase. So yeah, that is how the Twilight phase would work. And whoever won these, I think, who did the 3? So they would get that one. They would also, green player also get that one. And I feel like the magenta player won this one. So all those have been awarded. You would re-up, put out more tiles, and then you will go into the Moonlight phase, which has new goals. So 2 points per leftover spell token. Okay. 1 point per space in the largest control area. Interesting. And this one is 4 points per area in this shape, sort of going diagonal like that. So you just had a chance to see what the Twilight round looks like. The Moonlight round is very similar, except that as you saw, I put out 3 different goals for the Moonlight round. So there's another set of goals for all the players to be looking to achieve. The flow is still you out there bidding and trying to really get those tiles you need. So you don't want to place your marker. If you're starting the round, you probably don't want to place your bidding token, or your spell, I should say. They're all really spells. You don't really want to place that spell token onto the tile that you want unless you're bidding really high. Maybe you bid close to it, hoping that your opponents kind of come around, and maybe you can loop back around and then put an even higher bid once it becomes, assuming it's still something that's orthogonally adjacent to where the previous bid was just placed. So there's a lot to consider. And also, because there's only 2 rounds, which is interesting, because a lot of games work in sets of 3 or 4 different rounds. Because there's 2, if you're really trying to collect 3 mushrooms, and there's one out there between the tile grid or the forest sprite board, yeah, you might want to maybe invest in one of the mirror stones, or just give up on that particular objective. But you'll see what you're able to do as the game continues on. You'll have an idea of what your priority should be. If something is not available, then you probably shouldn't keep investing. Then you switch what you're doing. You maybe focus on something else. Maybe you try to get more concoction cards and maybe close the gap you think you might have with your opponents by completing more of those cards, because you're not able to get some of the set collecting done with the tiles themselves that you wanted. Flatout does a really good job of taking mechanics and introducing the people and reintroducing them to people who are already familiar in a very, very fun package. So my suggestion is keep the light on for Nocturne. Anyway, that's going to do it for me. Thank you for watching. Take care, stay safe, and be blessed.